Hi folks, today I thought I'd tell you how I got introduced to gaming in general, because I realized I've talked about how I got introduced to tabletop RPGs, but not how I got introduced to like board gaming and stuff like that. I grew up in a family that we played board games. We had a board game collection and oftentimes would have family game nights, and most of the games we played back then were things like Life and Monopoly, but I do remember playing Dungeon, and we found my brother's copy of Dungeon in my parents' attic this past Christmas. Got really excited because I couldn't remember if my brother had taken his copy or not, but that was his. There were several card games we played. We played a lot of Five Crowns. That was kind of our game that we'd bring with us on vacations to pull out if it was like, hey, there's going to be a long wait for this restaurant, or if we were just, staying in for the evening and we can play that in the hotel. As far as like video games go, I kind of from a very early age got introduced to like computer video games and stuff like that. My brother had a classic NES, so I grew up playing a lot of whatever games he had gotten. So that was Zelda and Mario and Rampage. Those are the three that are jumping out. I'm sure there were more. We also grew up in a house that my dad worked with computers, so we had a Mac, an Apple computer very early on, and I don't remember this, but my parents talk about it all the time. I would go up and work on the computer and make stuff in Paint, but there was also a early computer game where you pushed like A and it would pop up, A is for Apple, stuff like that. And then growing up, we oftentimes had, I played Civilization and Sims when that came out. Also really enjoyed Worms, which it was the little, worms that you had battled each other, and that was a fun coming home and being like, I want to just blow things up, stress relief, banana bombs. But my first introduction to the Euro-style games was Settlers of Catan. This is kind of the big game that got Euro-style games going, and I got introduced to it through my brother and sister-in-law. We would play several games in an evening, and I really enjoyed it. It was nice because, Monopoly is its own thing, but it wasn't as involved as Risk, but it also wasn't as simple as Life. There was a little bit more strategy to it without being quite the level of Risk, which I played once or twice and realized I don't enjoy Risk. Settlers of Catan was really my first introduction to Euro-style board games, and I really enjoyed it. And then as more and more games came out, I started slowly getting those. And it's really been in the last 10 years or so that have really been building up my board game collection. One, I've had a little bit more free time, no longer being in college and having a little bit more stable job. And with that stable job, I've also had extra money that I could buy new games with. Whereas before it was like, I have no spare money, so I'll just replay the games that I have. And that's a nice thing about board games is, especially if they're games like a lot of the Euro-style games that have replayability, that something changes ever so slightly every time you play it, you can have just a couple board games and that's all you need, as long as you like them. And then especially going to Gen Con and stuff like that, just getting a little bit more immersed in the world of board games and hearing about more stuff. There was stuff that we wanted to check out, we wanted to play. So that's kind of my introduction to board games. It's not as clear-cut as I don't have a specific memory of this is my first time playing a board game, or this is my first time playing a video game, or anything like that, just because I was lucky enough to grow up in a geeky family that loved board games, that enjoyed video games, understood my interest, and supported it. So what was your first introduction to board games and gaming in general? Do you have a specific memory? Is there a specific game that you started out with? Kind of how I remember Settlers of Catan as being my game that really got me into it. Let's talk about it down below. And I want to give a huge shout out to our patrons for helping support us. If you want to be a patron, check out our page on patreon.com. We've got some cool perks. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye!